Good afternoon, or whatever time it is that you are watching this at. Welcome to Pop Talk. Ordinarily, Hannah Petrie, Unitarian Universalist minister, is the co-host with me, and we're having technical difficulties, so I'm going to fly solo, as they say. My name is Ellen Snortland, and I'm a um, journalist, author, and agitator, basically. I try to agitate as many people as I can. It's like, hey, wake up! Today on our show, we interview our my wonderful friend Pauline Field, who is the founder and the chair of 50/50 Leadership, which is a nonprofit promoting women's equal leadership in all fields, be that in politics, business, education, or actually aftercare for foster girls who are graduated from the system. Um, and I'm on their board of advisors, and I was one of the original board on the original board um, with the transition into a nonprofit. And Pauline is actually her own success story. She's an amazing person. She has experienced homelessness all the way up to running a multi-million-dollar business and then everything in between. She's lived on handouts and in debt, and she's learned financial skills by living them and also being keen to learn from people who know and not just flying by the seat of her pants. She was born in England. You'll hear her beautiful accent in a little bit. She came to New York with 50 bucks in her pocket. She was determined to have fun and live life at its fullest. And then being broke and having worked to get enough money for gas, she has found her way through with a few bumps along the way. She's debt free with cash, reserves, and investments. Um, she founded 50/50 Leadership after leading the establishment of the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women. I'll never forget a lunch we had together where I caught her up after having not seen her for years with the actual status of women. And I remember her being serious. We haven't gotten further than this. And so rather than just tucking that into her pocket and like having it add to her field of knowledge, she went out and did something about it. She found out that Glendale had never had a commission on the status of women, which in that day and age was appalling to her. So she created one. That's what she does. That's what she does when she sees a need. She fills it. She's widely published on business practices and management skills, including her book, Feisty and Fearless, Nice Girls Can Be Leaders. And Pauline is a mother and a grandmother and lives with her partner here in Pasadena. Welcome to the show, Pauline.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Oh, you're so welcome. We perused the 50/50 website, and you've always been a great person for the numbers. I'm not that much of a numbers person. I'm more of an anecdote person, like success stories and stories about people. But you do both. You actually back things up with numbers because there are a lot of us who are numbers people. So one thing that's on the 50/50 website is that women doctors, we think of them as the elite and in the upper tiers of income. They only earn 62 cents for every dollar a male doctor makes. And during the course of the United States, for instance, 11,496 people have served in the U.S. Congress, and only 226 of those have been female. Now, this one kills me. Of all homeless families, 85% of them are headed by single mothers raising children alone. And then 31% of full-time faculty in U.S. higher education are women, and only 27% of them are tenured, and they've only earned a 5% increase in their salaries over the past 75 years. And you know, we could literally go on and on and on. Women earn 80% of what men earn, and if you're a woman of color, it's even less. And with this current rate of increase, it would take another 40 years to reach pay equity.
Yep.
So, given all this, describe the work that 50-50 leadership does to meet those challenges and take those things on.
Yeah. It every time I hear them, Ellen, and I read something else in the media, it just enrages me. And yeah, and it's really why I started 50-50 leadership, because women are half the population. So where are we, and what are we doing, and how are we not speaking up, and how are we not being allowed to speak up, and where are we not given access? And so over the 16 years that we've been in existence, we've done a lot of different things to see how we can level the playing field, so that, number one, more women or more people altogether know that, we're not there. There's only a few women, and the media makes a lot of us when we are leaders. So it looks like, we're doing fine, and we're not. The numbers are still very small. The what 50-50 leadership is doing right now is one of the critical elements of being able to have agency over our lives, and to be able to hold our heads up and be the leaders that we all can be. We have to have financial independence. And as you heard, and you spoke in the introduction, Ellen, I've been there. I've been there, done that. It's like uh, living in poverty. Nobody pays attention. And when you've got zeros in your bank account, like after a number, when you got lots of zeros, suddenly everybody wants to be your friend, everybody wants to listen to you, and you have some power. And even without all those zeros, but when you have financial independence, you now have the confidence to stand up and sit up at the table and speak your mind, and help to right the wrongs.
Right. So why do you think that change is so slow in terms of people regarding women as natural leaders? What's unpack that a little for us. What's up?
Well, first of all, when those in power are asked by somebody else to change the way, way things are, there's got to be a very good incentive. Otherwise, hey, it's just fine, thank you. Yes, we'll listen to you, but then I'll pat my other nice old boy on the back, and get on with our business. And so why should they give up their power? They're enjoying it. They get the benefits of it. We're seeing it in all the in the last year, with people waking up to the systemic racism, and how we're so privileged. And same with women. It's like, why? I mean, everybody can look and see that, well, women are doing well, and women are fine, and those that aren't, well, they're not. So what? And you know, what what really surprises me is that I still hear the comment, well, there isn't enough pool to choose from, not a big enough pool of women to choose from. It's like, when I hear that, I want to strangle them, because 30 years ago, I heard it and I thought, well, I don't think so, but here we are 30 years later, and all the strides we have made. And, when you think about, a few years ago, there were more women in law school, entering law school, than men, as just one example. There's plenty of people. There's women who have been making it up the ladder, but they still are getting stopped. Until recently, I had worked in a company that was a really good company. They really worked hard at diversity in all kinds. Nonetheless, this wonderful company had 60% women at the bottom, but at the top, you had to go down 3 layers to find a woman.
You know, I think one of the titles that I love the most is an essay I read. Men are not cost effective. When you factor in that they're more expensive to hire, and that there are lots of companies that have had to pay out God knows how much in sexual harassment settlements and all that kind of stuff. It's like, just bottom line, you'd think that more male executives would say, let's diversify here. It's like, but no. And it's really bizarre. And then there's the horizontal sexism with women feeling threatened by other women, and and I understand that, because when you only have a tiny piece of the pie, it's like,
You
I
want to
don't want to
protect
share
it.
the piece of the pie I have. And it's like, they don't feel secure enough to pull other women up. uh,
Yeah, and to your point of the financial reason to put women at the top and in the boardroom, uh, it's been many years since the Catalyst organization did research, and they showed that financially, that the companies, these are large corporations, those that had women in the executive suite and women on the board, their return on investment was always higher, always. So there's a financial reason to do it, and it still doesn't happen. And not only the Catalyst organization, since then there have been others. McKinsey, a major firm, has done a study that shows the same thing. So there is lots of evidence that says you need women in the C-suite. You don't necessarily have to have all women. In fact, as a management consultant, when I worked with companies, if it was all men or all women, it was not as effective as when it got broken up and you had some diversity in there.
I'm going to ask you a dumb question. what
Please.
does what does C-suite mean?
Oh, the executive suite.
I know, but what is the C?
The C is chief. The C is for chief. So
Oh,
chief
okay.
executive officer, chief operations officer, chief,
Okay. Okay.
IT officer, and so on. Yeah,
Okay, I got it. I got it.
yeah.
Yeah, so and there's plenty of evidence, but evidence doesn't seem to impact sexism.
No.
The now it's an old book, but oh my God, was that an eye opener? When Susan Faludi wrote Backlash,
Hmm.
there were companies that were doing poorly because they kept trying to sell sexist products, and they would not let go of those sexist products. They just would not. So
Right.
the bottom line was not impacted. I think it was, uh, oh, I need to reread that book, because it was like, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like so embedded. And in some ways, I think that sexism is the grandma of all the isms, because women of color experience it too. So when taken across the board, if we could crack into sexism, I think we'd make inroads into racism too. That's my personal opinion.
I
Because
agree. And in Norway a few years ago, they said all public companies had to have 30% women on the boards. So they made a law, and it worked. The California in 2019 said, okay, public companies, if with so many people on the board, you have to have one woman. As of this year, it has to be 3 or 2, depending on the size of your board. So, California at least is taking some steps to push them. because you're right. It's like, despite the fact that the numbers say it makes sense to put women in there along with the men, but they're not doing it on their own. So there has to be some kind of consequences.
Well,
And
the right wing talking points for decades now have been, you can't make us have quotas. Well, if they were the
right,
minority, they'd be screaming for quotas.
yeah, oh yeah,
It's like the arguments are so transparent, it just makes me crazy.
hmm
It's like, and the I had the experience, I think I've shared this with you before, Pauline, but the audience hasn't heard this. When I was a delegate to the Fourth World Conference on Women, the United Nations held in Beijing in 1995, they had pavilions for different regions. And so I hightailed it over to the Scandinavian pavilion. And just as a little side note, I was so proud when they started speaking Norwegian to me, because I look really Norwegian, because I am. And I said, "Oh, no, no, no! I don't understand Norwegian. I don't speak it. I don't listen it." It's like, ah, and they switched into perfect American idiomatic English. And I said, "So what's your deal? How come you have such great gender equity? Do you have better men?" And they laughed. I said, "No, no, 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 we do not. We have, jerks in Norway too. What we had was a very strong union presence. And within our union, we said, no, 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 you have got to include women and or the family in what policies you set up." And they kicked and screamed, and it was unions that said, no, 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 no.
hmm
You got to have men have family time too, and you've got to include the well-being of a family if you're going to have the well-being of the nation. So,
yeah,
yay! And I
yeah.
just think it's so sad that we have backslid on unions so much.
Oh,
Oh,
terrible,
in this
terrible.
country.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
oh,
really have. Also in Holland, they um, they said, okay, we have to have 50% um, of women be candidates for elections. And they actually spent time and money going around to various regions to make sure there were women to run.
yeah,
So it's possible. It takes some political will and um, and some pushing, like you're talking about in Norway. People like you have to keep pushing. And the more of us that are doing that, the more likely we're going to get something.
yeah,
But it's a tough road because uh, they really, the guys aren't going to step aside. They're not going to say, "Oh yeah, come on in." They're not. I know there are exceptions. There are some wonderful, wonderful men out there. We have men on our board, and we have other men who are allies, and not just 50-50 leadership, but, there are plenty of men out there who know, who know that, well, why shouldn't women be leaders if they're qualified?
right,
Why would we keep them out?
right, right. And the I think a lot of it, I do go around promoting my notions of women's liberation, and I think there's this brainwashing or whitewashing or male washing that's happened in this country, where a lot of women and a lot of men think it's been handled, so they don't take
Yes.
actions. And the predominantly white male mainstream media presents it as you mentioned. It's like, oh, look at this woman, she made it, she made it, she made it. And now that the New York Times has more gender equity in their staff, we're starting to get remedial stories, and
hmm
they're now
Right.
running obituaries of notable women that passed from 100 years ago, that
Yeah.
were completely and utterly ignored during their time.
Right.
So
Right.
I am heartened. I see things happening, and of course, not fast enough, but there you go.
Nowhere near fast enough. But then we have organizations like Raise the Wage that are, really hitting hard and looking at collaborating with a lot of different organizations to say, it's time. When you look at that, a major part of the jobs lost during the pandemic was women. Why? Because they're the ones in the hospitality industry, the hotels, the restaurants, the lower paid workers, and the industries that just, died during the pandemic. And so, and then there were the women that um, that voluntarily left the workforce because the kids are at home, have to be schooled and paid attention to, that they are getting on their Zoom lessons and so on. And, back to, it seems to me like back to the 50s when, well, of course, the man is still going to work.
Well, and it's financial coercion too, because you sit
Mm-hmm.
down with your partner and he's making more money than you are when you're working. The logical family is going to go, well, I guess you stay home with the kids and do the schooling. And, so it's financial. It's not even voluntary, really. It's like
That's right.
with a gun to their financial head,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and the women I know who are in that position are exhausted.
absolutely. Absolutely. They
I mean,
are.
the second shift and the third shift, and ugh,
I
ugh.
know one of the women on our board works for an aeronautical company, and she still has her job. She's got two kids. Her husband also has been working from home, and she's ready to tear her hair out a lot of the time. So, it's taking a real toll. And yeah, and women do still take the brunt. And, when you look, when you look at the difference between here and Europe, and I know there are people here that say, oh, we don't want to be like Europe. It's like, oh,
Are
I
you
think we do.
are you
Yes.
nuts? Are you
Right.
nuts? What was the Michael Moore documentary most recently?
Right.
Where we should invade next?
Yes.
My God, France, Norway, Greece, Italy. These people are treated like actual human beings rather than cogs in a big industrial machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think this would be a really good time for us to have a musical break. What do you think?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so excited you're with us today.
Thank you.
I'm geeking out. Well, everything is everything, which is so true with social progress. I mean, you can't pull on a thread of
Right.
of finances, for instance, without it impacting other parts of your life, and that goes for all manner of how we are human beings together.
Hmm.
So I love that you work with financial literacy. Talk about that, will you?
Yeah. So we we did a focus group with some former foster youth and gave them all kinds of things we could do to help them. And on the list was financial literacy, how to manage their money. And unanimously, they said, yeah, we want to know that. How do we manage our money? So we put together, we spend a lot of time putting together our Money 101 program, which consists of workshops and a year of one-on-one mentoring. And um, it's just been amazing, having known what it's like not to know how to deal with money. It, uh, it's so great to be able to give this to these young women. And if I may, I'd like to give you some success stories
Oh,
of,
yes, I love that.
yeah. So, in no particular order, but uh, there was one a lovely young woman who she wasn't struggling. She had a job, that was an okay job, and she really wanted to start her own business. And she told her mentor, okay, so I think next month I'll quit my job and I'll start my business. And the mentor probably did what you just did, opened her eyes like, what? And with guidance, with mentoring, this young woman realized that you don't make money the minute you start your own business. And so she kept her job and used her mentor to help her start the business as a side gig. And it's going very well. So yeah, so that was like just a wonderful win.
Can you say what that business is?
No,
Okay.
because it's still under wraps.
Okay, it's confidential too. Okay.
Yeah, right. Then we had somebody who really wanted to go to a 4-year college. She was in a Pasadena City College, and but then things were getting in the way, and and she said, well, maybe I'll just quit. And with the mentor, she kept going, and she got into the 4-year college of her choice, which happened to be UCLA. Yeah, so real win. Another one, this lovely young woman, really had some big dreams, and she got a mentor, and then there was one tragedy after another. She lost 2 members of her family. Her car was broken into. Her home was broken into. I mean, just one thing after another. And but she showed up to be with the mentor, which that in itself is a major accomplishment, because some of them they feel that they really well, who's going to care if I don't show up? And so the fact that this woman showed up was wonderful. And by the time the year was over, and actually at our financial literacy awards, the mentor was breaking up in talking about this, because she was so in awe of this young woman. She now has a very good job. She's moved to actually a different state and is doing really, really well. And to give you an example of just how tenacious this woman is, as well as all these things in her life, but the Financial Literacy Awards, because she was out of state, she couldn't attend in person, but she was determined that she was going to be online. And the timing was such that she was driving. I saw her go, lose signal and come back, lose signal and come back. She did that 10 or 12 times. She never gave up, and it's like, it's so wonderful to be able to impact a person's life. A woman, a slightly older woman in her 40s, survivor of domestic violence. When she came into our workshop, she was divorced. She'd never had to deal with money because her husband didn't want her to have anything to do with it, and her parents had never taught her. She lost custody of her kids. She'd lost her job. She just was a mess. Her life was, no, she wasn't a mess. Her life was a mess. And she did the workshop. It was like a sponge taking in all the information. She got a mentor, and within 6 months, she had a job. She had moved. She was in graduate school. She had her kids back. It was fabulous, fabulous. And the last one is, there's this young woman um, who had some issues. She definitely had some issues, but she showed up for the workshops, and she says, "Yes, I want a mentor." And and the mentor took a lot of time with her. And this young woman had money that was left to her, and she was just blowing through it like crazy. And until finally she was told, "Oh yeah, we're running out, so you're not going to be getting any more." And the mentor worked with her and said, you know, we can make this work. We can really make this work. And she now has a job, and she has different living arrangement, and she's on track. She's on track, and dealing with her other issues. So it's just it's so rewarding to see what happens in this program. And the mentor program in particular, often because of the people we work with, often the mentor is the first person in these young people's lives that is not being paid and is taking the time to care, to listen, to guide them. And at first they're skeptical, but as the time goes on, they realize, yeah, this person is here.
That is
So
so fabulous. How do people go to your website to apply to be mentored and or to mentor?
So to be mentored, you have to go through the workshop first.
Okay, okay.
And yes, you can go through the website to find out about the workshops. If you want to be a mentor, all it takes is an email to say, "I want to be a mentor." And we have an email, mentors@5050leadership.org.
Um, I wanted to get back to the success stories with the foster girls.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, have you worked with kids in the foster system that come out of Pasadena?
We don't work with kids. Everybody that we work with is 18 or older.
Okay, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So they're emancipated from the foster system at 18.
Yeah. 18 if they're not going to college, and there are a couple other instances where they can stay in a little longer, but basically it's 18 up to 24. But at 18, the door gets closed, and immediately half of them are homeless.
That's what I was getting at. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I have seen these stories of them having a trash can liner with their few items and $20 and bye bye.
That's right. That's right. Have a good life. Yeah. And they don't know where to turn. And by 19, a lot of those young women are pregnant, much higher percentage than the general population. And some of them turn to prostitution, some of them turn to other crime, some of them hook up with pretty unsavory people. So it's not good. One of the agencies we work through is a homeless agency, and when you hear a story like, okay, so the grandmother said, "Oh, I'll foster this young woman," and so she fostered her, and at the age of 18, she shut the door. Her grandmother. Yes. Luckily there are some homeless shelters that take young women in, but not enough. I mean, you look at the numbers of homeless in LA County alone, it's horrendous.
So you're really working with root problems with houselessness. I
Hmm.
mean, it's like this is one of those portals where you can actually prevent people from going without shelter
Hmm.
if you get them soon enough. Are they able to do the financial literacy workshop before they get out of foster care?
Um, no, because that's before 18, and
Oh, that's right. That's right.
yeah,
Okay.
and we're not set up to do that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I think everybody needs financial literacy. I need it. Nobody ever prepared me to be on my own. Everybody assumed that, some nice executive man would take care of me, which, okay, that's my parents were solidly in the old school, and I was born in a time where I had one foot in old school and one other foot in new school, and so a lot of my learning had to come,
Right.
by the seat of my pants. So everybody
Yeah.
needs financial literacy.
And to that, on that note, as we put, because it took us a while to put our program together, and so we talked to a lot of people. And on the way, there were lots of people who said the same thing. They said, either I need it or I wish I had had it. And so we hopefully will launch probably in the second quarter a Money 101 program for young women in college and early career, because we know that they need it. I was talking to one woman who was tutoring a lot of young women in either getting ready for college or in college. And she said, these young women have no clue because the parents are saying, you just study, get into a good school, we'll take care of everything else, which is lovely, except when they get to college, it's like, now what do I do? They don't know anything about handling money.
Yep.
So, it's although right now we're working with young women who've grown up in adversity, that we will be opening it up to the general population in a couple of months.
So what is the diversity percentages you're dealing with?
um, I would say I don't know that off the top of my head,
That's fine.
but
And it's kind of an old-fashioned question because when I was at Cal State LA, uh, people would say, "Well, what's your racial breakdown in your classes?" And I couldn't say because there
mhm,
were so many students of mixed race that it was
that's right.
a true melting pot, which,
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, well, we have moved along." It's like that person's white, that person's brown, that person's black. That's getting to be,
right.
archaic.
Yeah, I mean, um, because we want to help as many people as we can, we don't care what you look like,
Right.
um, what your makeup is. Uh, Unfortunately, our funders want to know.
Yeah.
And so we are, doing everything we can to gather that data because it's important. And I was just talking to somebody who runs another company that a nonprofit that we're going to collaborate with, and they deal mostly with um, Latinx and African American, and we we have a lot of both of them. We also have um, immigrants from other countries, uh, and we have white people. It's truly a mix that come to our workshops, and also um, there's also ageism, which is very prevalent and not often talked about. We have, although our program is designed and we target young women, we have plenty of older women who come in because they've just gotten out of prison or um, they've become homeless and they don't want to do that again or whatever. And in fact, one woman, when she was, and when I read her application for a mentor, she said, you know, I want to be able to be financially independent so I can pass that on to my grandchildren. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Wow. I mean, I don't know if you got a chance. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
it's all right.
my column this week
I did read it.
has to do with the table of liberation, and I
Mm-hmm.
identify four legs, one of which is financial.
That's right.
And if it's broken, non-existent, or shorter than the other legs, you're going to have a wobbly life.
That's right. You
Yeah.
know, with the wage gap, um, it can be, you know, $500,000 less that a woman makes over her career than a man.
Yeah.
That's not pocket chains.
No.
You know, it's like we are missing out. And then you look at retirement, and women have much less to retire with. And, you know, and 85% of homeless families are, you know, headed by single mothers. You know, so it's like it hurts all the way around, you know,
Yeah.
and you got so many kids living in poverty.
I mean, when did that get to be okay? You
Yeah,
know, it's like,
right,
people, I'm, as you well know, I'm very proud to be a Norwegian American. And, I brag about their lack of homelessness. Finland, Sweden, Denmark, they don't have homeless people on the street. And then people go, oh, 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 well, they're small countries. And you know what? There are plenty of small countries that don't have that. And
right.
it is truly a statement of values
Mm-hmm.
that would not be okay with the population,
Yeah,
to have
absolutely.
people without shelter. It's like
Mm-hmm.
so fundamental and tied in with
Right.
finances, right?
Yeah,
Ugh,
yeah. And you know, and then the whole situation of, you know, real estate, whether you're talking apartments or homes, it's getting so out of hand in so many places in this country, you know, all over the country, that it's like, how is anyone ever going to be able to afford to house their themselves and their families?
right.
It's like,
I think this last year, one of the things that just shook me to my core was finding out that the African American, and I'm assuming Native American, or indigenous people, were systemically excluded from the GI Bill, which meant they couldn't get housing, and white people got it, which means they established equity in homes that then would grow into wealth that they could pass
right.
on to their children.
That's
So
right.
it's like, wow, wow, just that horrible discrimination.
Yeah, yeah. It's awful.
And to think of all the African Americans and all the Latinx people and all the people who are not white, uh, being left out of the major way that people establish themselves.
Hmm.
It just makes me crazy.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, and you know, being an immigrant, as you mentioned, I grew up in England. I just the other week, I was thinking about how privileged I am, because when I decided I wanted to come live in the US, I just went to the US Embassy and said, "Okay, give me the paperwork." And you know, and I filled out the paperwork, and there was no question, there was no waiting. It was, you know, I took a test, and I came over with a green card in my hand. And then at that time there was a 5-year waiting period, and in 5 years I became a citizen, you know, boom, 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 boom. And it's like, yeah. And I think about what happens with people around the world who want to come to this glorious country and what we do to them. It's criminal.
Ugh, it really is.
Hmm.
Certainly dashing people's human rights.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, don't even get me started. Oops, too late. Um, the whole notion of boundaries, like
Yes. Oh my
borders.
God.
It's like, okay, on this side there's this country, and on this side there's that country, and usually determined by waterways or mountains or something like that. But it's
Right.
so arbitrary.
Yes.
Who had the gall to say this is ours, and then with Native Americans, oh my God, if you really just take a second to think about the land that they had stolen from them. I mean, stolen.
Yes.
We're
Right.
on we're on Tongva land,
Yeah. Right.
and
Uh-huh.
I want to remember to mention whose land we are every time I speak publicly. Just at the bare minimum of
Hmm.
respect.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
bare
Absolutely.
minimum.
And, immigration, or I should say migration, has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years or more. I mean, this is not a new concept. And we've made it what we've made it because of the boundaries and because of this is mine, you can't have it.
Yeah,
I don't want to share. And it's like it's so wrong. It's so wrong.
yeah. Major mindsets that need to be broken up.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Ugh, oof.
Yeah.
Well, we're winding down, and I just could talk to you forever.
Oh, likewise. Yes.
Is there anything that you would like to wrap this up with? I mean, the I wanted to get
Yeah.
into the Republican Party and the horrible, horrible mess that I won't even say his name, the former guy,
Hmm.
as Biden called him, left, and the impact on women.
Mm.
So we could talk about this stuff for a long time.
A
But
long time.
is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with?
Um, what I'd like to leave you with is that uh, we need more mentors. So, one of the easiest ways to volunteer and the most satisfying ways to volunteer doesn't take a lot of time, really doesn't. So, look into your heart and see, would you be willing to give an hour a week for a year? And it's flexible. You don't have to, it hasn't got to be Friday evening at 6 o'clock. It can be any time. And you will make a difference in a woman's life. And let me tell you, it makes a difference in yours. So the mentors often say, I got much more out of it than they did.
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah, it's really, uh, I really would love to see some mentors, some more mentors.
oh, so do you have only female mentors, or do you also have male
Yes,
mentors?
only female.
Okay, great. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
We started that because they used to be face to face, and we weren't about to take take the risk. When you think about some of the men that have been found to be predatory, who seem like nice men.
Well,
So
yeah. When I teach self-defense to kids, I ask them when somebody's nice to you, uh, why do you think they're being nice to you? Do you think they're nice people? What would a mean person do if they wanted to trick you? And they go, oh, they'd be nice. I go, yeah.
yeah,
That doesn't mean you have to suspect people if they're nice. It's just, it's
no,
not like, height or eye color or something. Nice can be a strategy.
that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
But we just haven't had that many women busted for sexually harassing kids. Although they exist, it's just
Right. That's
statistically.
yeah. It's much lower. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is all the time we have for Pop Talk. So I'm so thrilled that you came to be with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellen. It was a pleasure.
And you can learn more about POP at poppasadena.com. And you can find this episode, posted on Radio Hornalera, Radio Hornalera Facebook. And please share it widely. And it'll be made available on POP's website, which is Pasadenans for Progress. And we thank Radio Hornalera for their tech support and being the home for our show. And thank you for tuning in. And we'll end with another song by Lauryn Hill, The Makings of You. And good night and good luck.